PressRow. I'm Mike Sherman, and my guests are Oklahoman columnist Barry Trammell, Jenny Carlson, and John Rohde, and we're talking about Oklahoma State's game with Rice Saturday in Stillwater. John, does Rice arrive with another get-well package?
Well, what's it take, 5 minutes to cook rice? I mean, this is a bad Rice team. I mean, they lost 200 receptions, I think 2,600 yards in reception yardage. Their top three running backs. This is not the Rice, the 10-3 Rice of last year. Time to take care of business. Time to get the offense moving. Time to stop a team that should be stopped.
Well, to me, it's pretty obvious what's happened. Rice had a senior dominant team last year and pretty good, won 10 games in Conference USA, but they're terrible this year. They lose to UAB to open the year and got blown out by 45 to Tech. They're not very good. This is, Cowboys playing the Houston Daily Double, Houston and Rice, and, the schedule would have been a lot better for OSU if these games had been flipped. They could have got Rice after Georgia. I don't know if Oklahoma State had a problem with the mental letdown or, the coming down from the Georgia euphoria, but they'd have been much better off getting Rice and then jumping into Houston.
I tell you, I think it's important, too, how OSU wins this game. I mean, I think we can all agree that they're going to win this game, but do they win by 2 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns, 6 touchdowns? I think that OSU needs to have a pretty dominant win just for their own psyche. Barry, you mentioned these games that Rice has already had, and I think if OSU doesn't go out there and perform pretty well against this team, it's not going to be as devastating as a loss to Houston, but it's still going to feel pretty devastating for this program.
John, you had an interesting piece in the Oklahoman and on News OK right now in which you looked past last Saturday. You went back into last season to try to diagnose the Cowboys' offensive ills, and you found?
They've lost 5 of their last 8 games. They've lost 3 of their last 4. And you know what? They got 7 new starters. With Hunter out, Barry, they got 7 guys starting at a position they did not start at a year ago. 2 receivers, both guards, a center, a tight end, now a running back. Maybe we shouldn't be pointing the finger at Zach Robinson so much because the other 7 guys around him are new to what they do.
Is this a Brandon Pettigrew question? I mean, we talked last year about how good he was, how important he was. Does his absence really show up right now for this team?
No, because they played 2 or 3 games without him last year and did really well. And I think the Missouri game, I think they played without Pettigrew, and that was a monumental victory in Columbia. So, no. Tight end is, as much as everybody loves tight ends, it's probably the least valuable position on the field. So, you can win. A lot of people don't even use tight ends. You can win without a tight end. Oklahoma State can move the ball without a tight end.
Oh.
I don't know what ails them specifically. Hopefully with coaches sitting in film rooms and watching miles and miles of video, they'll figure it out. But, you almost have to wonder if maybe they just don't need to sort of turn the playbook on its head a little bit. Go to that passing game first. I've been talking about this all week. Go to the passing game first, and then use the running game after that. I know coaches want to be macho. They want to establish the run, show their might, but maybe this offensive line is a better pass blocking unit. Maybe they need to just use Des Bryant, unabashed. Just throw the ball to him 8-10 times a half, if you will. So they need to use that passing game, I think. It's not a deep ball passing game because Zach Robinson isn't fantastic at that, but 15, 25, 35-yard type of routes, I think use that and see what it does.
Is there something wrong with Zach?
I think, this is not deniable. He is 2 or 3 weeks behind everybody else in terms of practice time. So there's no denying he had, I guess it was both hamstrings, left then right or right then left, and he had the shoulder from last year's Holiday Bowl, and he sat out much of August. So he is 2 to 3 weeks behind in practice time, and that can't be made up. You can't fast forward that button.
No, and I think is he maybe a little bit ailing? Possibly, but I think most of these guys are. I think they just need to find a rhythm. They've got the talent. They've got the skill. I think they'll find it, but again, they might have to sort of mix up what they were otherwise thinking they could do with this offense.
Well, to me, Zach looks a step off on his running and his throwing. So, it seems like maybe a hamstring could do that on both sides of his game. So, he's got some time here to rest. He's got some time. If you don't want to play him the whole game against Rice, you shouldn't have to. I mean, they could get him out at halftime, I would think. Grambling same way next week. Bye week after that. Nice window here, 4 weeks between Houston and A&M to get Zach Robinson healthy.
You know, we've looked at a lot of things about Zach Robinson, but John, you were out there for the Holiday Bowl. You saw the hits that Oregon put on him. And his game is a complete game, running and throwing. Any chance a hit that Oregon put on him hurt his shoulder, any chance that that's still lingering?
Oh, sure. He got beat to a pulp that game. And this is why we talked about it last week with Sam Bradford. Shoulder injuries are so different for so many people, and there's just so many moving parts. And Zach, you talked to Zach, he insists his shoulder's fine. He says it was fine 4 weeks after the bowl game. But something's off. Either they're running the wrong routes or he's forcing it or whatever it is. But yes, to answer your question, I think there could be lingering effects from he got beat up bad that game.
That could be mental too. I mean, you get beat around that way, and maybe your first thought isn't, hey, I think I'll take off and run it. You know, it might be that he wants to sort of protect himself a little bit more. Maybe that's playing into it too.
Okay, the Rice Owls come to Stillwater Saturday. That's all now for the Press Row, but you can stay with the best coverage team anywhere, every day at News OK, and every morning in the Oklahoman.